contractor's journey to self-mastery requires discipline, integrity, and respect. Welcome to Hammer and Grind.
What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Brad Hebner, and I'm here with my co-host, Eric Triplett, and welcome to Hammer and Grind, the podcast built for contractors. Real contractors, true stories, real solutions. So here's the deal. We want to help as many contractors as we possibly can, but Eric and I need your help. So do us a favor when the podcast is over, leave us a review, share it with other contractors. We'd really appreciate it. Also, if you're looking for a community to join, connect with other like-minded contractors, check out our free Facebook group called the Contractor Profit Group. There's lots of great conversations and business going on in that group. Or if you're looking to step up your business and take it to the next level, check out our paid coaching group called the Profit Club. You can find out more information about that at our website at hammerandgrind.com/the Profit Club. So on today's call, we're going to be talking about imposter syndrome. And if you don't know what that is, Eric's going to explain it because he's a pro at it.
I'm a pro imposter, or I'm a pro understanding what imposter syndrome is?
You're a pro at being an imposter.
Well, if you're on a constant journey to self-mastery, you're like always stepping to the next level and you always are doubting yourself. Imposter syndrome is basically when you doubt yourself at where you're at. And when it really gets, it's like a mental problem, right? If you really let it get inside your head, you start thinking what other people are thinking. Like, people don't think I'm good enough to be where I'm at or where I'm attempting to be, but it's really in your mind. Sometimes people don't even care, or sometimes people think you're better than you are. You just think you're the one that's not as good as you think you are.
I think more people than what would admit suffer from imposter syndrome. And they may not know that that's what it's called. They may not know that has a name or a label. But I guarantee you that most contractors, if not all of them, at some point in their business have suffered from imposter syndrome.
I would agree, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, I guess it's if you let it really get to your head and let it pull you down. I think a little bit of self-doubt is probably healthy. Keeps you humble. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, there's times early in my business where, it's like, what am I doing wrong? Like, I know this works. I know this business model works because there's other companies out there that are successful doing the same thing I'm doing. And so I start looking at it and saying, am I not smart enough? Do I not have enough experience? Am I not working hard enough? Like, what is going on? Something is wrong. I'm doing something wrong that's preventing me from get to where I want to go. And so you start to feel like I'm not good enough to do this. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe I need to go get a job and stop trying to run my own business. Like all those things have gone through my head hundreds and hundreds of times over the years, especially early on when I just couldn't figure out how to do stuff.
Sure. I mean, to bring it in the most basic sense, it's like the real basic sense. We'll get back to contracting, but like you could be like, okay, you're going to be a father. A lot of people have an accidental pregnancy, and now they're going to be a father, and then they start getting in their head like, I'm not a good dad. I don't know what I'm going to do. And so like that's a little sense of imposter syndrome. People get married. They're like, hey, I'm suddenly a husband. Maybe I'm not qualified. Maybe I'm not making enough money to provide for the family. And my wife wants kids. What am I doing here? Like, I feel like I'm a fraud. I think imposter syndrome really relates back to you believing you're a fraud. That's the most basic sense of the way I can explain it. And whether that's being a good boyfriend, a good husband, a good father, a good whatever, it all translates across. And I think it's pretty common that people think that way. But, putting this into the entrepreneurial world, I think a lot of our listeners, again, are craftsmen turning entrepreneurs, turning into businessmen. They don't even know what the shit they're doing in the business world. Like all of a sudden, they're like, oh God, I got to pay taxes. Like they're still figuring it out. And so the fact that they aren't in an uncomfortable position because they don't know what they're doing and now they own their own business. It's like shit, I'm a fraud. What am I doing here? That's a real sense of imposter syndrome. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, I think at the core, what it is doubt, right? When doubt enters your mind, then your mind takes over and is like, oh, you doubt that you're smart enough? Okay, I'll show you 18 reasons why you're not smart enough. You know what I mean? Oh, you
Yeah.
doubt that you don't have enough experience? Okay, I'll show you 47 reasons why you don't have enough experience.
Yeah, your brain's a computer, man. You tell it something and it wants to validate what you said. So why don't you ask yourself better questions?
Well, this can go down a whole rabbit hole of, affirmations and goal statements and all kinds of things that you should be doing in your business. But from an imposter syndrome side of it, it's that is what it is. It's doubt. But the question is, where does the doubt come from? Right? Where does imposter syndrome, what creates it? What causes it to happen? Like, because there's times where I'm like rocking and rolling in my business thinking, oh man, this is awesome. We're kicking butt. I'm doing this. And then something happens. And the next thing you know, it could be an hour later after saying how awesome I am. It could be the next day, a week later, whatever. And then it's like, man, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Like, I shouldn't even be doing this. Something happened. Something triggered that to cause that anxiety, to cause that doubt to come in.
Well, that's the ebb and flow. That's the balance. And again, this is going to come back to humility. It's like, I think a certain amount of it's healthy to keep you humble, right? If you were over the top and you just thought you were invincible and you weren't humble enough to learn, then you'd get in trouble. So the problem is if you get on that scale and one side drops you real hard and then you jump on the other scale and it drops up, it's like you have to find it's like a balancing act, I think. And so I think to a degree, this is a healthy way to think. But then again, you have to, as long as you take it and then you like use it as a strength and you use it as leverage to get better.
Yeah. You can use it to get better, but other people get crippled by imposter syndrome. They get to the point and they're like, I shouldn't be doing this. I'm an imposter. I'm like living in somebody's body. Like I'm a totally different person living in a totally different body, and they can't get past that. You know what I mean? So it's not like something that everybody can just use as fuel to move to the next level. Some people are crippled by it.
I would say for the most part, I would say the people that are super crippled by it probably don't get as far as episode 20 with Hammer and Grind. I would imagine that. I do believe that, if that's just your tendency, you have victim mentality, it cripples you. You never break that. You never break that barrier. You never get off the couch. You never make that call. You never turn around. You never sign that paper to get your own business. You never tap into the computer how to start an LLC. You never get past that. I would venture to say that. But I do believe we all hit a barrier. Like we'll get going and you hit I do believe that contractors hit a wall, can get pulled down. And sometimes it could be something harsh that would pull you into that really dark spot. Maybe a divorce, maybe a loss in the family, maybe, something like that could pull you down and then you start questioning yourself. I think the people that are true entrepreneurs and are coming up and their journey to self-mastery and they want to get better, I think that they can get dark, but they can drag their knuckles across the floor and stand up and rise above it.
Well, I think everyone would agree, if something tragic happens, loss of life, family member, whatever, those are certainly going to trigger some, depression or some anxiety and things like that. In my mind, that's kind of a given, right? I think what I'm more concerned with in terms of imposter syndrome is when there's really no reason to have imposter syndrome and it just comes out of nowhere. And then, you just kind of, it's like, what's going on here? I've come to in my business, in my life, I've come to the understanding that if I'm having a really, really, really bad day in my business, and we've joked on here about I quit my business like 167,000 times. When I have those kind of days and I'm like, that's it, I'm done, I'm not going to do it anymore. I just make a rule of like, dude, just go to sleep, go home, go to sleep. Not then, but finish the day out, sleep on it, wake up tomorrow, and then think about whether or not it's, you need to make this action. And 100% of the time, it's different, right? A lot of times it's an hour later, it's different. 2 hours later, end of the night, it's totally different. It's just in that moment, and I get those thoughts of, oh, well, this is, I'm an imposter. I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm having all these, racing thoughts going through my head. It's just take a breath, sit on it, come back and revisit it tomorrow. And then for me, that's how I can kind of get through those times. I mean, I've had weeks, where it's just like every day something bad's going on, and you're like, why am I doing this? This sucks. And then, the next week, something awesome happens, and it just kind of erases all of those bad feelings.
Yeah. Again, it's balance. It's finding your flow. I think sometimes when people are transitioning, contractors, when you're transitioning, I think that's a really challenging spot. You might start another division of your company and maybe make an expansion. I see a lot of contractors do that, whether they might be, a landscape contractor and then they want to get into doing ponds, or they're pond guys and they want to expand into doing landscaping. And then maybe suddenly they're expanding into swimming pool construction because it makes sense because of it's a close tie to what they do. And then suddenly they're in a field where they feel uncomfortable. And I think that's an interesting spot to be in as you expand and you start to judge yourself. You feel like you're being judged by others, questioning your moves. You lack some experience and you're like, what am I doing? I think I'm a pool contractor. I'm a total imposter. This is not really what I'm good at. And so you start to question yourself. That's the balancing act. Hopefully you ground yourself, you do some studying, you lean into some peers, you get the information you need, and you wake the hell up and you get back after it.
So I want to start a new segment here, Eric. New segment in our podcast called Real Talk. Real Talk with Brad Hebner. Real Talk with Brad and Eric. That sounds better. So listen, and this because I've talked to you about it, but when we started Hammer and Grind and we decided we were going to do this and start our group and just the whole movement that we're trying to do, there were many, many times where I would message Eric and be like, hey, dude, we don't even know what the hell we're doing. I mean, like full on imposter syndrome. Who's going to listen to us on a podcast? Nobody knows who we are. Like all these thoughts and stuff going through our head. And here's what's crazy about it. It was never because someone said, you guys suck, or you guys don't know what you're talking about, or you don't have enough experience. Like literally, as far as I know, Eric, and maybe you haven't shared with me, but we haven't had a single person to date like reach out and say that you suck or don't know what you're doing, or you shouldn't be doing that. Like not a single negative comment has come out of it. If any, I mean, all we've ever received is positive comments. And so those are the kind of you have those thoughts of, man, we don't know what the hell we're talking about. We don't know what we're doing. And then the next day someone's like, dude, I heard your podcast and it like really fired me up. Like it motivated me to make this change in my business. And that's like the best feeling in the world, right? Or we have one of our members in our Profit Club is like, wow, we've never knew what my numbers were until you sat down and figure that out with us. And now we actually know what kind of money we're making in our business, and we can grow and do all these things. Like that stuff happens and it's awesome. And Eric and I both love that. That's why we do this, because we want to help other contractors. But man, there are days where Eric would, and it's funny because I'll like message Eric and say, hey, we don't know what the hell we're doing. And he'll be like, no, we know, we do this, and this. And he's all positive. And then a week later, Eric will message me like, man, we don't know what the hell we're doing. And then I'll be like, what are you talking about? We did this and we're doing this and blah. So it happens to everyone. This isn't something that, it just happens whenever you're new. I mean, there's professional athletes, professional businessmen, like at all levels of life imposter syndrome creeps in. And so I just want to share that happens to me probably more than Eric, but I know it's happened to both of us, and it's real. I mean, and getting through that is the most important thing. And thinking that you're alone in that, I mean, that's what I'm trying to share here, is that you're not alone in those thoughts.
Bring it in for a group hug. Bring it in.
Oh, that feels good. Thanks, Eric.
Yeah, you're welcome. Listen, this we're approaching 16 minutes in the podcast right now, and I was like, after like 15 minutes ago, I was like, are we going to talk about coaching and how I feel and all this? Because, Brad hit me up and he's like, bro, let's start a podcast and let's see if we can help some contractors. And I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm that kind of person. I don't know if I can help people like that. And it's interesting because I have, for the past decade, every now and then someone will reach out and go, hey, can you help me come up with a name for my business? Can you help me with the logo? And it's interesting because if one person asks, 100 people have thought it, but not too many people act upon it. So it's that 1% that acted upon it. And so, the fact that you reached out and said, hey, let's do this. And I was like, okay, that could be fun. That's interesting. I think I have enough people that might have we can get at least 5 or 6 listeners. Let's do the podcast, right? But then when you go, you're like thinking like, I don't know enough to help anybody, but there's a lot of assumed knowledge there. And I mean, man, getting your ass kicked for 25 years in business, you learn a lot of stuff. And there's a lot of things that you can share with people to shorten a learning curve. That's a little overwhelming and humbling when you get it at the same time. So yeah, I go through imposter syndrome. Do I know enough to teach anybody to save some time and help them in their business? Sometimes I wonder.
Well, I learned many years ago that, there's kind of this stigma of, in order to teach somebody else something, you have to be like the expert, the foremost expert, right? Like you have to be the guy that knows everything about said topic. And the reality of it is, all you have to do is know something more than what the other person knows, right? And everyone's at different positions in their business. Are we gonna be helping a contractor or builder or somebody who's been doing it for 30 years, 40 years, second generation, third generation, $50 million in business a year? Like, probably not. I mean, there's probably a few things they can learn, but we're not going to be helping every single person, right? But you've been doing this for over 20 years. I've been doing this for over 11 years. I'm pretty sure there's enough experience that we could help somebody who's only been in business for 1 year or 5 years, or maybe even 10 years, or maybe someone who's trying a different, part of their business, like you said, a different division that they don't know much about. So the reality of it is, when you're trying to, and this isn't about coaching, this is about also in your business, right? All you have to do is know how to do one thing better than someone else in order to be able to help them, in order to provide a service or a value that's worth it. Does that make sense, or am I just like making up stuff here?
No, I mean, you're right on track. I mean, there's a lot of contractors that have a mediocre year, okay? And then they do a little bit better the next year. And then they kind of hit this weird little roller coaster for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. It happens all the time that sometimes they don't reach out and never break out of that barrier. They never look for assistance. I mean, listen, we're in this crazy world in the past decade. You have YouTube and Google and videos and Facebook and peer groups and all this stuff where you can like really reach out and learn stuff. But if you think back, there's a lot of contractors, 20 years ago that they didn't read. They didn't read a book to try and learn. They just had the same shitty year for 20, 30 years in a row. And some contractors are waking up, and even if they're older, they're kind of like, okay, I'm going to get into this and learn, right? So I think there's a lot of value that can be provided in the fact that we're in this digital age. We can, you and I can do a podcast halfway across the country and record it live virtually and help people like that. So yeah, I think there's a lot of assumed knowledge. There's a lot of things that I know that I learned through failure, and that I can share with people and shorten the learning curve. That's a big deal to me.
So I want to take a little different angle on this. As we've talked about many times on the podcast, I do competitive pistol shooting. And when I first got started, I think it's been, 5 years now, I was watching tons of YouTube videos, like trying to learn as much as I could, right? Even though I was in the Marines and I knew how to shoot, I wasn't a competitive shooter, and it's a totally different kind of type of shooting. So I was watching videos, and there's guys like Jerry Michalak, who's, he's one of the pioneers in competition. There's videos of him, all kinds of stuff. And so I found this one guy who's a very, very well-known competitive shooter. I mean, multi-time national world champion in several different disciplines. And so he was something that I kind of modeled after. Well, for my birthday a couple of years ago, my wife got me a private coaching session with him. It was a full day of coaching with him at his house. He has a range behind his house. How cool is that, Eric? I mean, he's got like a full-size range behind his house.
Amazing. So amazing.
I mean, steel, all moving targets, like the whole gamut of everything you would possibly need. And so it was in Ohio. So we drive, it was a weekend getaway for my birthday. We go to Ohio. I spent all day Friday shooting with him. And two things about this. One, which is totally unrelated to the story, but we shot 800 rounds that day. That's how much I shot, 800 rounds of bullets. That's a good day. Anytime you can shoot 800 rounds, that's a good day of shooting.
Amen.
But I walk in this guy's house. It's a very modest ranch house where I'm sitting at his dining room table. We're having a conversation and talking. I had this kind of, I put him up on a pedestal because the guy's good. He is a very well-known shooter. He's very good. But by the end of the day, what came out of that, the thing that I learned the most from that day was not about techniques or stuff. It was the fact that he was just a normal guy like you and I. There was no difference between him and me other than he put more time in. He put, thousands of reps in, and he dedicated his life to that, being able to shoot well. That's the only difference. It wasn't because he was smarter or faster or more athletic or knew more. Like it wasn't any of that. It was just pure dedication to the sport and putting in the reps. And honestly, I almost felt bad for him when I left because he was a single guy, because he travels all over the world and does classes. And, he didn't have a family. He didn't have a wife. And so it kind of looked like a bachelor, lonely lifestyle. And I almost felt bad for the guy. But 8 hours prior to that, I was like worshiping him as a shooter. Like, oh my gosh, starstruck. Like, oh, it's him. And I'm in his living room. And, and then 8 hours later, I was like, wow, I kind of feel bad for the guy. And so a lot of this stuff is it is a mindset, but it's an image that we put in our heads, and then we see other people. We compare ourselves to the guy down the road, the contractor down the road, who looks like he's got the nice truck and the trailers and the, all the toys and all of this stuff going on. And we're like, man, I'll never be as good as him. And I'll never be able to measure up to him. And I'm just an imposter and blah, blah, blah. But what you don't realize is that guy down the road is in debt up to his eyeballs. He's one job away from losing everything, right? Because he maxed out his credit to get all that stuff. That's the stuff you don't know what's going on behind people and their businesses. And so if anything you can take away from this, from me, it's that we all have something to offer someone else. And whenever you have those seeds of doubt, go back and look at all your accomplishments. Go back and look at what all you did. It doesn't take long to realize that, oh, wow, I really do know what I'm doing. I do belong here.
Yeah, that's a pretty fun story. And it puts some perspective into things, because as amazing as that guy is a shooter, he's probably outrageous, amazing, right? But he's just a normal guy. And there's each one of our listeners are probably amazing and outrageous at certain things in their life. But they're normal people. They put their pants on the same way we do. It's just all It's all perspective. I would say that one time, it's weird for me because I started my business because I loved fish. And so there was like this really fun passion all along the way. It wasn't like, hey, I'm going to start building ponds to make money, and like just you grind through it and figure it out. Like there was so much excitement for me playing with fish all day and actually getting paid to do it. It's crazy that I didn't have much imposter syndrome at the time because I knew so much more about fish than anybody that I knew at the time. And this is like pre-internet days, so I couldn't look up to any other amazing aquarists that are in the world that are just hundreds better than I am. But I was totally unaware. I was ignorant, right? I was just like, I'm the best that I know about fish in my immediate area. So it's like, I didn't have that imposter syndrome. But an interesting thing happened to me in 2011, 2010. I decided to build my own pond skimmer. And today it's my patented skimmer. But it really fell into my lap. And when it happened, I just wanted like a manufacturer to take it, like pick it up from me and pay me handsomely, and then make me like the brand ambassador to that product, and like I would help them do it, right? Because I'm not a manufacturer. Wasn't my passion. And I think that's really the first time in my career that really I hit a brick wall, because now suddenly I wasn't able to attract a manufacturer to pick it up for me because we were just coming out of 2008, 9, 10. It was like a pretty tough time. Here is 2010, I'm pitching this thing. 2011, I'm producing it. 2012, I go to market with that skimmer. And so I called myself the accidental manufacturer. That's like, I still call myself that today. I still don't even look at myself as a manufacturer. I feel like I'm an imposter in that area, although I know like I have a different perspective today. But like I was like, what am I doing? I'm not a manufacturer. And yet everyone from across the country wanted my pond skimmer because it was unique and innovative and fish friendly and different. But that was a really like brick wall moment for me. Like the first time it really sunk in like deep into my soul that I was an imposter.
So how did you get over that?
What if I told you I haven't?
Are you telling me you haven't?
I almost haven't. It's really weird because that's just like this ancillary part of my business. It's not like it could be the main. I could literally quit everything I do and just go do that and probably lead a pretty good life if I put all my energy into it. But it's not totally my passion, really. And I'm pouring some stuff out I've never really told a lot of people, right?
That's why it's called Real Talk, man. It's Real Talk with Brad and Eric.
Yeah, it's Real Talk. I mean, it's a fun part of my business. It's a very special part of my business, and I love it. It's just that, it's really weird. I don't want to go into too depth, but that happened in 2012. 2015, I had cancer. I thought I was going to freaking die. I was like, oh, okay, it's over. Who can we sell this to support my family? While I'm dead, like my family can have some money. Like, and then 2-3 years, I'm recovering, and so like it's brought me through some dark times. And so like it's a really special part of my life, that skimmer and that imposter syndrome that's always there. It's in my pocket right now, Brad. Like literally, it's in my front left pocket.
Your skimmer is?
No, my imposter syndrome.
Oh, okay. What was interesting about when I went to that coach and I was in his house, on his wall, he had a shelf that had he had 2 world championship trophies. And when I was looking at them, they were covered in dust.
That's crazy, because you're like, this is like the specialist moment ever. Like you look up to it so much, and to him, it's probably important to him, but you're not knock the dust off it.
At the end of the day, he's like, here, I'll show you something. And he goes back in his garage, and he had a locked door, and he unlocked it. My wife had come back to pick me up, and we go in there, and it's a room probably about 8 foot by 8 foot size. And every square inch of all 4 walls were covered in plaques. I'm not even exaggerating. Every square inch. And then on the ground, there were rows and rows and rows and rows of plaques sitting in front of plaques in front of plaques. I mean, he had probably 100+ plaques in this room of wins, first place wins. You know, local matches, small matches, nationals, regionals, like everything. Because I even joked with him and I said, "Do you ever get so tired of winning that you just like start using the plaques for firewood because you have so many of them?" Because he did.
What did he say?
He just kind of giggled it off, you know. But and I don't really know why I want to share that, other than sometimes, you know, what we see from the outside of who we think is an expert and who we look up to, you know, they have their own issues and their own things that they're dealing with. So it doesn't necessarily make them special.
How does this tie back to our own personal imposter syndrome and what it means to us, you know, this world champion competitive shooter?
Because he has his own form of imposter syndrome. I mean, he's dealing with his own things. If you have 2 world championships, don't you think you'd have them polished and on display where everybody can see it and take care of it?
Well, I don't mean to take this completely sideways, but you know, like he's winning so much in that spot of his life. Look, we have a lot of buckets, Brad. We have a relationship bucket. We have friendship buckets. We have personal hobby buckets. We have financial buckets. Like if you're not winning in all those different buckets, sometimes if you're only winning in one, you're not really fulfilled. And so it might resonate and show up in a dusty plaque hanging on a wall.
Well, that's my point, is that he is winning in one of those buckets, but he may be losing in all the others.
See, like to me, that's like, I want to win in a lot of buckets. And sometimes I'm winning in a little bucket and sometimes I'm not winning well enough in a certain bucket. I'm like, I want to go harder here, but if I go too hard here, I'm going to lose the rest of it, you know? And I don't know how this is tying back to imposter syndrome, but
my point is that everybody has imposter syndrome at some point, to some degree. It's something that everybody deals with.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And so when you look at somebody who you think is better than you, who has more experience, who has a business that's better than you, again, you don't know what's going on behind the closed doors. You don't know all the stuff that's happening, right? And so you shouldn't have this ideology around, if I'm not doing as good as Eric Triplett, then I am an imposter and therefore I should just give up.
What's interesting is the world's so big. There's such a huge population. There's so much going on. Like, look, let's face it. Half our audience, they don't even like you, Brad.
I agree with that.
Okay. And then conversely, half the audience that listens to us, like 9 people, right? So let's make it 10, 5 to you and 5 to me. Half the audience, they don't like me. And so
go ahead.
What I'm trying to say is like, just because, like, so you look up to that competitive shooter and you feel like there's a lot you can learn from him. But the reality is you could probably have a greater impact on people than he ever could because of your, you know, your microclimate, like wherever you're at, like you have your own community, right? You have your own micro community around you. You can have a massive impact on those people. You know, like like one of the things that I want to do, you know, I don't even like you that much, right, Brad?
It's noted.
Yeah. Okay. Dude, I want to go shooting with you so bad. That's all, like literally, I think about that all the time. I just want to go shooting with you. It'd be so much fun. And like, I could learn a lot. And like, so what I'm trying to say is like, you look up to that guy, so you couldn't possibly teach anybody because you want to learn from this guy. But you literally could have a greater impact on 100-fold the people that he could, because he doesn't resonate with certain people, right? And so that's what's really interesting to me, because like, so I think I'm okay at business. I think I could teach a lot of people, but I look up to a lot of other people that know a shit lot more than me that I'm trying to learn from. But I feel like my personality can help a lot of people, and then the people that don't like my personality, they're going to like you, and you're going to help them, and we can really help a massive community together, because we have different personalities, different training techniques, different just different approaches. And we could probably impact more people and help more contractors with their business and their numbers and their marketing and time and money and all that stuff more than the people that you and I look up to.
I agree with that, except for one thing. You said there are 10 listeners, 5 like me and 5 like you. It's actually 5 people don't like me, but 10 out of 10 don't like you.
No.
So let's get that right.
I think you're wrong right there, bro. I think 10 I think all 10 of them like me, but like 5 of the 10 might think I'm a jackass and the other 5 think I'm cool. And but 5 don't like you and 5 tolerate you.
No, it's 5 and 10. Listen, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but I don't know if you were trying to convince me or convince our listeners. Either way, it sounded pretty good. But to bring this back to contracting, you're going to have days where you feel like an imposter. You feel like you don't know what you're doing. Your business, you're not making profit. You don't feel like you have a handle on your numbers, your marketing. Like there's always balls in the air that you're trying to juggle and they're constantly falling, right? You're constantly dropping them, picking them up. And so first thing I want to say is it's okay. It's okay to have imposter syndrome at times. 2, you're not alone. The 3, and the most important thing is that you just have to keep pushing through it, right? There are people out there in less experience, less opportunities than you, and they're moving forward. And there are people out there that have way more experience and way more opportunities than you, and you're just somewhere in between. And it's not necessarily a destination. It's not your identity. Your identity is not in your accomplishments. If they are, you need to get that checked pretty quick. But it's okay to have imposter syndrome, but continue to push through it. That's all I got to say.
I want everyone to have imposter syndrome. I really want them to have it because again, I think it etches a little bit of humility into our person, and it just brings a little reality check into your life. If you never get imposter syndrome, I think overconfidence is really a bad place to be, and I think imposter syndrome will kind of level that out a little bit. So I mean, if I could wish anything for all of our listeners is to have some imposter syndrome, but have a relationship with it that is healthy, because you don't want to go too deep, but you don't want to be too arrogant. You don't want to be too cocky. I think having a healthy, balanced relationship with imposter syndrome, I think, is paramount.
I'll share this real quick story and then we'll get off here. And it just reminded me, and I think I may have shared this before. Whenever I decided to take up competitive shooting, I went to the very first match, and I thought, former Marine, marksmanship instructor, I'm going to go out there and just kill everybody, just come in first place. And I got out there and I started shooting, and I did not come in first place. I came in towards the end. So I walked into that range overly cocky, and I left it with a whole crap load of imposter syndrome. So to your point, it's healthy sometimes to have that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important. And so I think that's the biggest thing. I think we really brought it home that it's healthy. Everyone's got it. Everyone should have it. You should want it, and you should figure out how to use it as fuel to be better. And I think that's a wrap right there.
That's it. Take us out of here.
Thank you so much for giving us your attention tonight. We really appreciate the fact that you spend the time with us. Do us a favor and do the world a favor. Make the world a better place, and share this with some contractors, because there's some jacked up, mentally unstable contractors, and our goal is to help stabilize them and help them through and be better businessmen, be better people, better human beings, better dads, better husbands and wives, all that fun stuff. So anyways, I hope you guys are enjoying this podcast as much as we're enjoying recording it. We will catch you on the next download.